I want to wish you a great Thanksgiving. You're probably getting pretty close to signing out for your weekend, your long weekend, tomorrow with lots of the football games. Congratulations. You made it another Thanksgiving. Us Canadians, we get to use this time to bask in working on our business because we have basically Thursday and Friday off because we serve you, the US market. So, anyways, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I have a topic from today's call, getting back to multi live streams a day. I want to bring stories from the road, customer conversations. This is a prospect conversation. So, had a prospect conversation today in which they talked about field sellers, so high velocity field sellers who are in geographic territories deployed in selling a software solution. And when they reverse engineered the average week of the average seller, 10 of 40 hours. So I'm going to kind of give the situation. 10 of 40 hours in a week could be mapped out to Administrivia. I call it $5 an hour tasks. So it's things that the seller needs to do, but unfortunately they are doing it, and you're paying that seller $100,000 a year to do it. Yet we all know in our heart of hearts, this is really a $5 an hour task. So here's the challenge. Those tasks have to be done. Here are some of those particular tasks in order of operations. You're selling into a geographic market. Who are all the companies that are in that particular territory? Who are all the contacts that we would sell to for our ideal customer profile? What are their phone numbers? What are their email addresses? What are their LinkedIn profiles? Now, that sounds like, oh, we own Zoom Info, we own Apollo. That's simple enough. No, you actually haven't paused. And I'm going to back up. When I was in university, there was my first year business school. We learned about this concept by the Gilbreth. I think it's called the Gilbreth method. And the Gilbreth method during World War I or World War II, they were commissioned as, if you remember, like guns were, you would load them like you like stamp down how a gun was loaded, and then it just was a giant time waste. So the Gilbreth is a husband and wife family. They were all about time management. They went in and they studied the mechanical steps to loading a gun, and they helped in the redesign process that made guns like click, click, like really quick. Then they got hired into factories like Henry Ford, and this is the pioneering of the Ford assembly plant, because they would watch somebody like build a car, and you would have a person put on a hubcap, put on a tire, and walk down a line and do it all themselves. Then they created specialists that would do one task, and they would time it. They actually worked with the army to teach soldiers how to shower, where you would go down one arm, up the other, to maximize the efficiency. So long and the short, imagine you say to yourself, yeah, my sellers, they use Apollo, they use Zoom Info, like they have this information. No, break down the subcomponents of a $100,000 a year seller, taking a moment to squirrel through Apollo or Zoom Info, extract this information. Maybe it's an account at a time, email address, phone number, LinkedIn, putting it into a CSV file, or then trying to extract it into a CRM. So big challenges that they noticed. Number one, data enrichment. So TAM mapping and data enrichment. Okay. Number two, they then need to take that data and get it into a CRM and into a sales engagement platform. And a cadence and sequence need to be built. Again, you say to yourself, well, our sellers, they have email templates, or our sellers, they have access to these tools. You've been buying all these tools for people and you think it's a great idea, but unfortunately, every minute that the seller is designing that cadence and squirreling through their brains about, what do I write as an email template? Which template do I grab from? Where do I get it? Designing these cadences for them, their cadences change every week because they literally go from patch to patch to patch. And then number three, as we start looking at time consumption, is presentations, PowerPoint presentations, proposal writing, follow-up responses, data entry into the CRM post-meeting. Like not every seller has Otter that is auto recording and then transcribing the story of the discovery call and condensing it into something and then sweeping it into CRM automatically. Most of the world is having to do this themselves. So when you calculate that, when you click play on a stopwatch, that ends up being 10 of 40 hours a week. That is a quarter of the time. And so 75% of the time is ideally selling, 25% waste. So what does that mean to you as a business? If you pay sellers $100,000 a year, that means 25,000 of it is going to what should be $5,000 or $10,000 tasks over the course of a year, paying somebody to do the very same thing rather than 25,000. And then what it's doing is it's robbing from revenue. As if they were to achieve $500,000 in a year, but they only got to 400,000 because that's a quarter of it stolen away. So that's 20%. So they wanted to achieve 400,000 and they only got to 300,000 because a quarter of it was stolen away with ADMINISTRIVIA. So I started to validate this concept. I'm going to be writing a book on it and studying it on the correlation between the sellers that have maximized their time versus those that haven't. What are they doing from a time management perspective? It's sales support as a service. And this is where virtual assistants drop in to a pod of sellers and they start stripping away the $5 an hour tasks. And they start in a concentric circle. The most core basic things. A seller should not be constantly hawking over their own email and calendar. That is the core principle to what a VA does for a founder and a CEO. You want the same thing for a seller. They should also not be doing data in, data out. That means TAM map, data enrichment, stories going into CRM, enriching into CRM, getting that information in there, updating notes from a meeting. Yes, you can give people all the technology in the world. That just doesn't mean that they're actually capturing that information and putting it in. That requires a human being many times to do it. So that's like the most fundamental thing. Then when you start breaking down the next task, you start looking at the next time management bottleneck, which most of the time I would say is going to be on design of cadences and sequences, email templates, PowerPoint presentations, proposals. These sort of design elements are backing sellers away from being in market. So the concept of sales support, I think I've mentioned it a few times. It's already been working for years for founders. As founders and CEOs, we've done the math. We know the value of our time. Why do we get virtual assistants? So that we can maximize our time with our customers, with our prospects, in intellectual property design, with investors. And we buy ourselves out of these administrative tasks. But sellers are intrapreneurs. They are people that control a market, a territory, and they need the same sort of support so they can maximize their investment. So I am going to continue to pull on this thread, but I want you to think about that. I want you as an exercise to take that Gilbreth method. I think it's called the Gilbreth method. Take a stopwatch and start reverse engineering all the details, the small movements that sellers are taking that take away from selling time. Email, calendar, design work, data in, data out, research. These are all things that minutes add up to hours. Hours add up to days over the course of a year, and those days you can buy back. So with that, I wanted to pose this idea. It was really enlightening hearing the Chief Revenue Officer talk about this and how we can take offshore resources, sales support, which typically cost somewhere between a virtual assistant starts at $350 a month USD. Deploy into a pod of sellers and extract the $5 an hour tasks. So I'd love to hear your feedback. Have you done this yourself? As a founder and a CEO, you know you probably already have done this. Now go look at your sellers and realize that they are entrepreneur versions of you. You could be doing the exact same thing. So with that, I want to say happy Thanksgiving. For most of the audience that I'm talking to, you're already into your first cocktail. Congratulations. This is my last call. I don't have any calls for the rest of the week because American Thanksgiving. But with that, I want to sign out and have a great Thanksgiving. And think about this as you go post Thanksgiving. Start mapping, start clocking what a seller does in a week. And you're going to see a lot of wastage and a lot of opportunity to buy that from them so that they can do more work in the field, but also you're also buying some happiness for them. You're taking away the things they loathe so they can focus on the strategic initiatives they want to do. That in itself might start, and there's no proof around this, but my thesis is it starts to create greater stickiness of that seller in your organization. So have a great Thanksgiving. You take care.